Okay. We should be going live now. Welcome, everybody watching, who's probably nobody yet. And yeah, I just want to check if we've got a feed running. Hi, Alex. Can you confirm you can see and hear us? Okay.
I've never used this. I don't even know what it does.
So we're just like connecting. I've connected Jitsi, which is just like Google Meet basically, but open source. And I've connected it to YouTube, the QGIS YouTube channel. So it's live streaming it out. Just check if the feed is working. Okay, yeah. Alex says you can hear and see us. Cool. So I'm Tim Sutton. You can see at the bottom of my name on the screen, I guess. And I'm joined here by Marco Bernasaki and Gary Sherman, and hopefully, I think some others will be joining us as well from the PSC, past, present, and future. I don't know. Yeah. And we thought we'd just have an open session just to chat about what's happened in the year, maybe, and what's going to happen next year. We can do some crystal ball gazing. How's your crystal ball skills there, Marco? And maybe just now we'll open the Jitsi room to others who want to come and join us and hang out. It'd be great as well. But I was hoping Andreas was going to join us as well. We could talk a little bit about like what happened financially in QGIS over the year, and maybe we could talk a bit about the highlights of what happened over the year. And I'm hoping people in the stream chat would also fire off some questions, especially since it's an honor having you here, Gary, in the room. I'm sure a lot of people want to ask you a lot of stuff, be it about misbehavior in Alaska or other QGIS related things.
I don't know anything. I'm old.
Well, I do know something. I do know something I want to say to Gary, which I've somehow never met before, and it's thanks a lot.
You're welcome. I planted the seed. Others watered, and it grew. That's my view of it.
No, but it's super cool to see what. I mean, I hope you think also that's cool to see where it's going. So.
Oh yeah.
You started something amazing. So, thanks.
Yeah, it's a long ways from those early days.
I think you've spawned many people. His livelihood is now thanks to you, mine included. Like my wheat bix that I've got in my cereal bowl here, paid for by maybe not by QGIS, but by open source GIS in general.
I would say it was a success.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is the criteria for complete success, or have you already met it?
Boy, I don't know. More than 3 people use it, and 1 person can make a living on it. That's my definition.
Oh, then you've exceeded your criteria by a large order of magnitude, right?
I like to set the bar really low. That way I can still step over it. But I was looking back through the Git logs in retrospect, and it was almost a year where there was hardly anybody working on the project. It was 2 years before you came on, Tim, if I remember right. So it was a long, slow start.
I think, it was when you first posted on Fresh Meat. That's the first time I found out about it. Fresh Meat, I think, no longer exists.
What's that?
I think I experienced that for a short while as well, but I'm not sure that most people know that.
Let me see if Fresh. I think we looked the other day to see if it still existed, and it was there in some form or another, wasn't it?
Yeah, I looked at it the other day too. It's still there in some form.
Was there? Oh yeah, it's still there. Sort of renamed a bit. But it was the freshmeat.net. I'll put it. It's become a SourceForge thing, but and it's got no SSL certificate, so it shows you how over the hill it is. But it was.
And the Wikipedia entry for QGIS links to fresh meat. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll put it here in the chat room. If somebody wants to go and search in there for QGIS, you might find the old entries.
And it says the oldest thing in fresh meat is release 0.8. Looks like, yeah.
But I think they took away the search function, so I don't know how you can. Anyway, maybe there's a search function. No, it just it's a redirected over to SourceForge, which was also the original home of QGIS, right?
Yep.
The CVS and some version days. So have you done a nostalgia build of one of the early versions of QGIS, Gary?
No, I thought about it, but I don't know if you could find all the requirements now, the versions needed. I certainly didn't save them. I've gone through so many computers since then.
I guess we could get like Ubuntu. What was the Ubuntu, whatever, one of the early
Ubuntu 7, like the what was it called? Like it was a bird, something.
Heron or
Heron, yeah, Hardy Heron.
Hardy Heron.
Oh yeah,
Hardy.
I remember that one.
What were you developing on initially, Gary? Was it on Linux? And on which distro?
Whew. That's a good question. It might have been Slackware. Or it could have been that, what was the German one? I can't even remember the name of it now.
SUSE.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I was using.
Okay.
I started with Slackware. I still have the original Slackware CD set that's about this big. One of the very early ones, sitting downstairs along with all the other junk I have. Yeah, I was using Linux. I didn't even have a Mac back then. And I certainly didn't start on Windows, as you well know.
So if you did a nostalgia build, I guess it would start super fast. There would be no Python plugins slowing down the startup time.
That's true.
I wonder if it would still manage to connect to Postgres, because maybe you need an old version of Postgres.
Well, if you get to run an old Ubuntu, then you have the old stack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or an old whatever.
Yeah, I thought about doing that, but not very long.
Yeah,
sure
time-consuming and mostly pointless exercise than to say that you.
I haven't been able to scare up a screenshot of the very first thing I put out there, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the main reason I was thinking it would be nice to have it, yeah.
I'm sure we can put that out on the community and somebody will do that.
Or we should do like a retrospect, maybe next year. For when's the anniversary in June? Or
well, depends if you want to count February when I wrote the first line of code, or June when I went to June or July when I announced it, or whatever.
Let's say
somewhere
June,
in there.
February might be a tall order to organize, but we should try to do like a retrospective changelog and release review of QGIS. What is it? 0.00001.
I could tell you the first one started up with no toolbar or nothing, and I think I hard coded a layer in PostGIS that I wanted to display, and it drew it on the screen, and you can probably guess what it was.
Yep, I think you can still get that layer in the installer, which I wonder if anybody actually uses to fetch the sample data for Alaska.
The airport one?
No, I think it was the boundary of Alaska. I think I probably drew first.
There's the boundary in it, and then there is the airport point set in it.
Yeah.
I think you went straight for the hard one, doing polygons rather than doing points first and then lines and then polygons last.
Maybe, I don't remember.
I see Andreas is in the chat. Are you going to come and join us in the room, Andreas? I'm going to just send him the link quickly.
Yeah, send him the link because I couldn't find anywhere the link. That's why I wrote to you.
Okay. Let me send it to everybody quickly. Alessandro said he will be a little bit late arriving.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just quickly trying to put some people around.
I'm getting messages saying, "Whoa, you are in a chat with Gary."
Upping your QGIS street cred by one level.
Yeah, that's yes, that's pretty. Yes.
I went to years ago in Seattle. I went to one of the QGIS user group meetings anonymously, and a couple of guys that were there knew who I was. Nobody else did, and they went around the room and announced who they were, and I was about the last one. And when I said that, everybody went, "What?" And one guy's going, "No way, no way, no way." I had to hand him my business card to prove it. And then I told him I'm very famous in very, very small circles. It was kind of funny though. I mean, and also the I can't even remember his name, but it was kind of a funny thing that the main man from OpenStreetMap was there that night too. I can't even remember what his name was now, but he was there, and so it's pretty funny having to hand your business card to someone to prove who you were.
Yeah, well, that's. Oh, Andreas.
Hi.
Hi, Andreas. Sorry about the mess up with the links. I'm glad you could all join us. I thought you were in the invite.
I found 2 Jitsi links on the web page, but none of them worked.
Okay.
Now I got it.
And Jürgen is here as well.
Hi, Jürgen.
Hi.
You can.
So was it just Marco that hasn't met you before, Gary? I think you've been on some calls with the early PSC calls with Jürgen, surely, because he was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
When did you? Was 2015, right? When you started creating PSC, Tim? Like in the officially kind of.
2000. It must be more than 2015.
We established the PSC when we joined OSGeo, and that was clear back in like 2008 or 9.
Yeah.
Because OSGeo was formed in 2007,
Yeah.
if I remember right. But then, of course, it was formalized once it went to the current organizational structure.
So Raymond's got some questions for us. And keep the questions coming, everybody. So he says, I've got a question from a Dutch user group member about the 2022 budget proposals. That's one for you, Gary. I'm kidding. I'm sure that's going to be one for Andreas. In general, what all these items mean, and specifically why some are much higher than other years, like the website and certification system. Maybe it's interesting to go through all the posts and explain a bit during the session. So could we have a look at the budget, Andreas, and just sort of briefly explain what the different cost items are? And
Yes, I can. Just a moment, I need to dig it up.
let's ask Gary, what do you think the budget? Have you been keeping track of the budget? Let's see if you can guess what the QGIS annual budget is for 2022.
Got it,
I can
Andreas?
guess what it was for 2002. 0. I don't know what it is now.
Have your best guess before the screen share goes into full.
Oh no, sorry. Then I'm gonna stop the screen share.
I can't read that. I have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
Put it in some broad band, like less than 1 million, less than 500, less than 100. I don't know.
100,000 euros.
Not bad.
Now you can do your big reveal marker.
I was off by a little.
You need to zoom up your screen a bit more, Marco, because old guys like me won't be able to read a thing on there.
So what specific questions did you have on the budget?
So, okay, the first question was, what do the different items mean in the budget list? So maybe you could just give a quick run through of the main line items and explain what they're for. And then why some of the items are much more expensive this year than last year. Particularly you mentioned the certification and website. So maybe you want to just comment on those, why they're higher than before.
Okay, so certification is basically, the original idea was that Hans van der Kwast and Kurt as reviewers would get some reimbursement for their efforts around reviewing training material, but they didn't accept that offer. So basically what we do now is use that money to improve the software for managing the certificates. Basically, Cardoza will be working on improving the software there for maintaining the certificate system. You know better than myself, Tim.
There's actually a document which we can share if anybody wants to see exactly what's on the plan. But the main idea is to make it easier for the reviewers because it's very time consuming for Hans and Kurt to go through the review process and also to improve the communication with people that have been putting in applications for certification. So we want to just improve the automations and give a better threaded conversation trail so that you can understand where you are in the process or why you were rejected if you were rejected or why you were approved if you were approved. So that's the main idea. And then there are some additional side features we want to do, which is to improve the reporting so that we can have, for example, a map with the upcoming training events and a table with upcoming training events and some other kind of statistics showing where the most certifications happen, or just basically some GIS nerd outputs from the certification platform as well.
And the website update, it's basically something we postpone all the time because every year we think we should work on improving the website, but no one has time more.
The good thing
we're having it in the budget.
Yeah, the good thing is that now that work it's starting slowly, and why it is much more expensive than last year, as Andreas said, because last year we did do nothing. So that's the budget item that we have for a complete. The idea is to have a complete redesign of the website.
Marco, just from the chat room, they're asking, can you please just make your browser window much wider, and then so that because nobody can really read anything on the screen.
And I think the bulk of the expenses really goes to the bug fixing. You can see each release gets between 25 and 30K. So that adds up to almost 100,000 euro. And packaging gets some share for Windows, Ubuntu, Mac. And what we have, a new item we have next year is the semi-automated testing for LTR version. That's something we didn't have before. It's
Maybe, yeah, we want to explain a bit about what's going to happen with that.
So we basically, it means every LT version release will get some basic testing by Giovanni and Alex Nieto, and they will run it through some tests they have locally. And of course, not every corner of QGIS can be tested that way, but they have some experience from their previous work when they worked at Boundless. And but I don't know the details.
So what we are looking at here is basically to add on top of all the automated tests that are coming from the CI, we are adding a semi-automated test set that is standardized. So every new LTR version will go through the same testing set so that we know that the key functionalities and core functionalities are actually working. And because of that, we are also reducing the amount of LTR releases that are coming out. They're not coming out every month anymore, but every 4 months. So that actually we can cope with the amount of testing happening around.
And you mean
to remember,
release there, right?
Sorry, Tim?
You mean the bug fix releases in that case, yeah?
Yes, exactly. So the important thing to remember is that we're talking here about when a release enters the LTR repository, which means it has already had 3 3-point releases before that. So the first 3-point releases are still every month, and after that we're gonna switch to a quartal kind of rhythm.
Any other questions about the budget? The good news is that we usually get a lot of additional donations and memberships in December. So the numbers you see here on the very right column are outdated. So it's quite a bit higher currently. So we are actually matching the budget 2022 already in 2021 on the income side.
Cool.
And on the income side, what is pretty different this year is we have a lot more income from certifications than we used to have before. So currently there are more than 20,000 euro coming into the certification program. But the bulk of the income is still sustaining memberships.
Did we, I think we've got a page we can show the breakdown if you want to, Marco, if you want to go on the changelog. You can see where the money comes from the sustaining memberships. If you go to changelog.qgis.org.
All the different organizations right there. So we have different levels or tiers for the sustaining memberships. It's based on self-assignment to the levels, and we have a number of large members, a bit more medium, and a lot of small members. And the large sustaining members are often user groups, like the Swedish, Swiss, or German, Danish, but some companies as well, like NextGIS, OpenGIS, and GIAP from Poland. And on the medium level, you can see all sorts of companies and sometimes also government agencies, like Vorarlberg.
Just zoom up the screen a bit, please, Marco. Us old guys can't read your tiny thing. So the sustaining member levels are still staying the same to the future, Andreas? Have we had any interest in platinum? Or what's our highest level?
No, we don't have any platinum members yet.
That's still my goal, Tim, is still to get one of those.
How much is it again for a platinum? It's 50,000 or
27.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
3 times the large.
And Marco, there's a map as well there on that same menu that you were in, that you can see the.
Yeah, I think country-wise, if you add up all the sustaining members, you can't see it very well on this map, but the German-speaking countries are really standing out, like Germany, Switzerland, Austria. Those are the number 3 contributors, I think.
If you
But
switch
then Denmark is pretty active with funding.
I think we need to change the scale on this map.
Yeah, the color scheme is really bad on this map. I think it.
Nobody complains about the coordinate reference system.
Oh, and the picture are gone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we need to do some fixes there.
So yeah, you have Switzerland with almost 80,000 euros.
And Germany is pretty high.
And Germany has 112.
Denmark, Austria.
Denmark 40.
But that's accumulated over a couple of years. That's not per year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should change a bit the color scheme now, Tim. Make it logarithmic or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one thing I would like to mention is from North America, we don't have many from the US sustaining members, but we have more donors, like private donors, but not so many like government agencies or companies. Canada has a bit more than the US. But I guess that comes from the fact that ESRI has quite a grip on the GIS market in government in the US. So
that is for sure.
And that's quite a bit different in other parts of the world.
And that it's really hard to manage to get your company listed on the government website. I've been trying for like 5 times now, and I keep getting, oh, you missed one thing at page 73 of the form. Yeah.
So we had some comments saying we must go after the whales, but I think we wait for the whales to come to us, and generally we don't actually have anybody that goes to big organizations and says, hey, can you fund us?
Well, it is
we do it.
that I've been that I have on my to-do list to start going more to bigger organizations. We've had a couple of things happening lately, so haven't managed to get there. But it's for sure something that Andreas and myself have been looking into trying to get a bit bigger organization to build up. We've started working with the UN OpenGIS program more and more. So I think there is a movement also toward, for sure, larger donors, which are not really sponsoring QGIS yet, but which are for sure promoting the use of QGIS in multiple situations, multiple scenarios. But it'd be very interesting to start going to big companies as well, and then trying to get more out of that. Because we now and then get inquiries about, hey, can we do this according to the license, and can we do that according to the license? And then you look at what the domain name is, and then you have immense companies that are using QGIS. I'm talking like big national oil companies or other cartography institutions. So I think there is more and more of larger users that are getting to using more and more QGIS, and what we need to do is reach out to them and actually tell them, hey, you could support more. And we started doing that this year.
And I'd like to mention something on the expense side. What we see here, for example, the money that goes in bug fixing is usually not covering all the time that the developers spend on bug fixing. Usually, my rough estimate is that they spend twice as much time as they get paid. So there's still a lot of volunteer work in QGIS.
And not only on the bug fixing, right, Andreas, in the documentation, and all the areas really. I think
Yes.
Most of the effort is coming from volunteer work and.
Also, for example, Richard spends a lot of time on the infrastructure and Cardoso as well, and only a fraction of it is actually paid. So.
I know from our side, it's for the company side of OpenGIS, it's for sure at least like 4 or 5 times more, which we put in. But again, that's part of the we have a company running thanks to QGIS, and that's why we also put those kind of hours in it, because it's a win-win kind of situation. So, and I think it's amazing to see the amount of work that is going into QGIS in general, being from volunteer kind of work to companies contributing to the same area of code and sharing knowledge there and doing pull request reviews. And that's maybe an area that we need to improve a bit more, is having more people that are doing pull request reviews. But it's really amazing to see how easy it is to work with other companies and with all the volunteer people that are involved in the project. And I think that's a testament to the nice community we have.
It would be quite an interesting study to see how many full-time employees work primarily on QGIS development these days. It might be something.
It'd be really interesting to find out. Yeah,
maybe something around 50 people.
I'm sure.
I'd say from OpenGIS full time, I'd say 3, maybe 2-3 people, something like that are working on QGIS related things over the year. I guess Cardoso, Tim, you know best.
Yeah, but I think more broadly, I think the point to get across to people is that this 239,000 on the budget is only a fraction of the effort that gets put into QGIS, both between volunteer and company-funded or client-funded work. And it would be nice to kind of have an estimate of actually how much all of that effort came to, so that we could understand how much our budget is compared to ESRI or some other big company putting into their software development.
Do you remember when we won that Black Duck Award? They had this estimation of how much work went into QGIS. And I think, if I'm not wrong, it was 500 years of one person working, something like that.
Yeah, you can go and there was a website you could go and calculate all that stuff. They changed their names too many times now. Kokomo model, yeah.
Yeah, it's 591 person years. But that's only QGIS. There is no website, no documentation, no translations, no infrastructure. So here we're really talking about the pure, the repo QGIS/QGIS. So.
And there's also GEOS and GDAL and OSGIS and all the other OSGeo stuff we build on and Qt.
Just remember to zoom up your screen if you're showing things on the because
Sorry.
yeah, you have like a million DPI on your screen or something. Doesn't translate well to yeah. Thank you. There we go. So Gary, what do you think of the budget and where the money's being spent, and any comments from your side?
I think you guys are doing a great job. If I was to sit down 20 years ago and think that this thing would look like it does today, it'd be beyond my wildest imagination. So it's amazing.
Any area you think should be funded more that doesn't get seen enough love?
Is there a retirement fund for the founder anywhere?
You can start selling licenses.
Okay.
Probably documentation should get more interest, I think.
Hariso is in the streaming chat, so I'm sure he's pleased to hear you calling for more help in the documentation front. He's got the most thankless job and doing amazing work, and really, I don't know how you stay motivated, Hariso, but thank you.
Yeah.
We do need a lot more documenters.
I just quickly summed up GDAL, GEOS, PostGIS, QGIS, we get to 1,200 years of work. And we're talking only like, not even getting all the dependencies and still nothing around QGIS. So it's, yeah, pretty big bunch of work there.
That's about how much I feel I've aged on 18 years of working on QGIS.
By the way, next year is 20 years of QGIS, isn't it?
Yeah. Next
So
in
The
January,
big birthday party.
we should do something nice, I think.
Yeah, maybe an Hackfest, if we can.
Alaska Hackfest.
There you go. We could give away free copies of QGIS to everyone.
Signed by the founder.
I think
So-
Raymond is still dedicated to organizing a meeting, but hopefully the COVID situation will allow it. Maybe in somewhere around late spring or.
So there's another question for you, Andreas from Groenebay, who is, I guess, one of the Dutch user group again. He says, I did notice the column expenses 2020 for comparison in the budget sheet does not match the financial report of 2020. What could explain the differences? So I think he's keeping an eagle eye on the books there, Andreas.
Well, I can just comment on how precise Andreas is. Although I was pressuring him that it was okay, he didn't put throughout his report for the budget because he didn't find where 200 euros went over the all last year. And I think he spent like a week searching from where that incongruence went. And so big shout out to you, Andreas, for all the work that you're putting in there as well. So.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most unacknowledged roles in the whole community is the treasurer and all the work you do, and it's really amazing how you just. I think a lot of your work has been why we've been able to just organize so much bug fixing and improve funding management and so on.
So what exactly did not match up the
2020 budget and the 2020 on your 2021. Were you talking 2020 Groenebay or were you talking 2021? But
it was probably was this. You see my screen, Jean? Can you read it?
So I think he's matching the previous year and the budget from last, like that we put out the end of
Like there in the we have in the budget report we have the 2020, and here in the list of the budget 2022 we have we have a list of comparison, but this one is probably the one that doesn't match up with the report.
One explanation here might be that we don't have all the rows we have here. They were quite different in the years before, and we didn't include all of them because they are not relevant anymore. For example, some like work that was only relevant in 1 year is not here in the spreadsheet, and that might explain the difference.
And also we've been putting things together, like grouping things together, so it's a bit easier to manage those. What we also did this year is that we assigned a person on the PSC to each of those budget items, so that it's much easier to actually manage those, and not all the work falls on Andreas' shoulder. So, for instance, if hopefully there is going to be a second developer meeting, the local organizer can talk to me directly, and then we just at the end forward the expenses to Andreas, so that he has a lot less work, because what he's currently doing is everything that costs something or that generates money, Andreas is involved, and it's a lot of work. So. Do you maybe have a specific item that you can help Andreas to find out? I don't remember the name you said, Tim, from the person that asked. Tim, you're mute. Tim, you're mute.
Sorry, I was saying Groenebay. I will wait for him to add some more details in the chat, but so far I don't have more detail. We have a question for Gary from Matthias Kuhn, who's another hardcore QGIS developer from Switzerland. And he's asking how often you use QGIS these days, Gary. And of course, can you pronounce
Herzogenbosch.
Yeah, I can. That's what Tim said. Yeah.
I can't even pronounce it myself, and I can quasi speak.
I don't. Well, I have one little project I work on, and so when I'm working on that, I'm using QGIS every single day, but that works intermittent. But I've written 4 novels, fiction, and I include a little map in each one of those. So I use QGIS to develop that. And I probably use it at least once a week for something. I mean, I'm not working as a cartographer or a GIS consultant full time, so I don't have occasion to use it every single day hardcore, but I do use it. I do have the latest version.
And Vicky is asking you, hi Gary, what initially inspired you to develop QGIS?
I wanted to be able to I like playing with spatial databases back in the day. I was using that dirty 3-letter word SDE from that big 4-letter company, and so I installed Postgres and PostGIS at home, and I wanted to be able to see spatial data on the screen. And so I looked around and I couldn't find anything that would do what I wanted. I suppose Grass could have done it back then, probably did, but that's kind of the impetus was to be able to pull something out of PostGIS and display it on the screen. That's what started it all. I think it only took me over a weekend to get to where I had something on the screen. But I'd been using Qt or Qt, however you want to pronounce it, for quite a long time at work. And so I didn't have any learning curve with it, or very little learning curve. And that's what started it all.
Thank you. And
I have a question, if I can. So the technological choices were given from what your work background was, basically.
as far as the GUI toolkit, yes. And I wanted to keep it. And the reason I chose that was because it was cross-platform. I wanted to keep that open and not bind us to one platform in case this thing ever turned into something.
Which would never have happened. And do you remember there was maybe back in 2002, 3, there was a GNOME competitor that tried to start up. I think they fizzled and died like a few months after. Do you remember that, Gary? But there was somebody who was going to start building a GIS in GTK, not GNOME, but GTK.
I do not remember that. I probably blotted it out of my mind.
Do you remember the name, Tim? Or?
No. I also blotted it out of my, well, most of it out.
I remember when I was at uni in 2000, what was it, maybe like 2005 or 6 or something like that, and I was looking for an alternative to all the free license that I was getting from big companies. And I remember running into QGIS and OpenJump back then. Those were the two kind of thingies that I looked at.
What was that Java one?
That was OpenJump, no?
Was it? No, there was another one that was for doing the cartography with SLDs and stuff. I don't remember the name. I think it's still around, actually. But, so there's another question for you from Ismail Sunni.
UDIC.
UDIC.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
You can always rely on Jürgen for his encyclopedic memory. Ismail Sunni says, can you tell some fun facts about the early version of QGIS? And how did Tim find QGIS and you at the time? Oh, you missed the early part of the conversation, Ismail. So what fun facts can you tell about the early versions of QGIS, Gary?
Oh, boy, I don't know. It was just fun developing it because we were rolling versions and changing, nearly every day once we had Marco and Tim got on board and a couple other fellows came on, and it was just we were on IRC all the time, and because the mailing list got like one email a week or something back then, and it was just kind of doesn't really speak to a unique or fun fact about a particular version, but the whole kind of collaborative, quick development thing we had going on was kind of fun. And Tim can tell you where he came in. He saw an announcement somewhere and came in and said, I got to fix this thing that Sherman started, and it went from there.
Actually, I came in and then I wanted to look at, I think I added the pseudo color render or something because I wanted to look at my species distribution models in it, and I couldn't do it. So I blindly fiddled around. I was opposite of you. I knew nothing about QGIS, so I was fiddling around a lot trying to do things. But I think some of the fun things were we had a really good community even right from the start, and just all on the IRC channel. But it was really fun, and nobody was ever rude to anybody, and it made it really pleasant to be in that room and just be chatting all the time. And we had a bot, an IRC bot, which I used to love that bot. we trained up with some stupid responses to standard things.
Yeah. The other fact was, whoops, my ear fell out. Yeah.
And who was Simon? That was the first version I started using.
Simon,
what was that?
Was
Simon.
M. Coletti's cat, I think, or something, wasn't it? Simon.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I remember your dog was Bandit. I'm sure that dog's probably not with us anymore.
No, he's gone to doggy heaven, or, well, given his temperament, maybe the other direction. I don't know. The other interesting thing was I was not much of a raster guy at all in terms of at least writing code for it. And so if it hadn't been for, I think Marco and Tim both had something to do with that, and maybe Steve Halaz or those three fellas, if it weren't for that, we'd still be looking at just vectors and QGIS. So.
Yeah, and there was another guy who came along and started doing a lot of good stuff on the vector, on the rasters as well. I think also was interesting that like people just really were scratching their own itches, and we didn't have any predefined idea of what was good or bad to add to QGIS. So it was amazing that the feature set didn't turn into like this crazy Frankenstein. Maybe it did a bit, but like we had Lars Luthman adding GPS support, which I think just got stripped out the other day. Did the GPX provider or the GPS tools? I think maybe Ale, do you remember? Did we drop the GPX tools the other day?
You mean the plugin, the C++ plugin? No, I think it's still there.
I think it was ported to core. Niall had a grant proposal on that, and he worked on it last year.
Yeah, but we are definitely not dropping the functionality.
No, not the functionality, but the original code. Yeah. So people just brought whatever they wanted, and because there was nothing really of anything. Everything.
There's no roadmap. It was just kind of like on the fly. Hey, this would be cool to have. Let's do this. But I had a real aversion to adding dependencies to the development process at that point anyway. So we were real picky about what we added as a dependency or a library just to make sure we could maintain that cross-platform capability.
I think that's still the case. The developers nowadays still look carefully before adding new things. I think that that is still a concept that is lived.
Alex Camilleri asks, what drove the decision to make QGIS open source and free? Was a license change ever on the cards?
Well, it was free because nobody would ever pay for what I was developing. And I just wanted to have a nice project to work on and a collaborative thing. And there was no way we were going to develop some proprietary system. And then the license thing, yeah, we talked about changing the license more than once in the early days, and it's a real contentious topic. We have the philosophies of our developers back in the day, and probably still range from people who'd be willing to put a restrictive license on it, or more restrictive to people that want it, absolutely 100% free. And so I think it works the way it is, and to try to change it now would be impossible. If you read what it takes to change from a GPL license to something else, you'd have to get permission from everybody who ever wrote a line of code, if I remember correctly. So.
Mm-hmm.
There was another question from Ian Rue who said, is there material that I as a QGIS promoter inside of my company can use to motivate why a company should contribute financially? My opinion, users don't know what effort goes into projects like this.
I think that's something we need to work on more, and ideally as a part of, not as a part of, but as something that goes along with the redesigning of the website, where the website should also be more a place where somebody like you could tell their bosses, look, that's the product that I'm suggesting, and this is kind of the message that they have, and to build up a little bit of marketing language around QGIS, because we have an amazing product, but we're not doing we're not doing the right amount of marketing to it, or we're not paying justice to the amazing tool that we have with the communication that we have. And that is why I think something like my probably highest priority for next year in the PSC, or at least for my role in the PSC, is to work more on the communication around QGIS, and also to communicate that QGIS is not only the desktop tool, but that it's a complete platform. It's a complete you can build a complete geospatial infrastructure around QGIS. You can go mobile, you can go server. So it's really, we really need to tell people more about how amazing the whole ecosystem of QGIS is. And probably, as you say, we should also explain more why do we need those kind of sustaining membership and where the money goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's relatively easy to get funding for new features, but it's quite hard to get people paying for maintaining the software. And the larger QGIS gets, the more work it actually is to maintain it. And for that reason, the sustaining memberships are really great, and hopefully we can get more of them. Maybe from the companies, Marco, can you say, is it the same? Like my experience, it's easier to get funding for features than for support. Maintaining.
Well, obviously, it's much easier to sell a feature. But what we started doing is basically that every feature that we are selling together with it, and not only us. I'm sure that all the other companies are doing the same, just selling maintenance with it, so that you can actually work on QGIS as a side effect of a feature development. And
as a customer, you can also demand, like for example, unit tests, and you could demand documentation to be part of the contract, and that helps to have a more complete implementation in QGIS. Not only functionality, but also documentation.
Sorry, I think that as a customer, it's very difficult to come and bring that requirement. What we are trying to do is really to turn it around and tell the customer, look, we should also do the rest. Actually, unit tests are now mandatory for new features, but and documentation also. But when a customer approaches us for a feature, we from beginning on start talking about the whole thing around, because many customers do not know that the problems that we are discussing here. So it's also up to us developers to actually tell the customer how thing works.
And sometimes, for example, we just had the recent crowdfunding, the successful one on the second part of LiDAR. It's great to see this functionality, but I would rather be happy to see also documentation being part of it. It's not yet the case, but perhaps in future crowdfundings, documentation could also be included.
Yeah, that should.
Because sometimes you have a great feature in QGIS, and if it's not documented, then people might not even notice it.
Yeah, I just spent yesterday a good part of my afternoon looking for documentation of one of those great features, and I ended up in the C++ code.
But on the other hand, you can find a tremendous amount of QGIS tips on social media, on YouTube channels. There are really great explanations. This Swedish guy, Carl Carlson, and Anita, and many other people who post their videos how you can do certain things in QGIS. So it's not everything of the documentation is centralized. It's quite decentral, actually, at many places spread around the web.
Yeah, maybe in our new website design, we can have like a way to find out more that goes out to like Ujjwal Gandhi's blog, for example, is like an encyclopedia of how to do things nicely in QGIS. And
yes, Ujjwal is also a large number of videos here.
So Could we have a little bit of a retrospective of the year that went past? We survived COVID another year, all of us, thank goodness. Like, what were your highlights in terms of what happened in QGIS, maybe in the software itself features, but also in the project? Or what was like the standout things that happened for all of you? Maybe we can go around the table. And
I don't mind.
you go ahead, Marco, since you.
Those last Friday of the month that somehow Tim and myself started out of a discussion, Q Hack Days or something. I don't remember how we call it. Quack Days.
Quackfest
at the beginning, and seeing how they turned out, and thanks Tim to all your team that has taken over, and then Amy and on all your guys that are pushing things there. So I'm really happy that at least we got that. I really miss the real Hackfest. I really miss to see all the people. But that's something that I'm really happy about.
I think even when the real ones come back, we'll continue with this because a lot of people can't get to the real Hackfest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for me, this one, and seeing that even if we already have 27 countries, user groups, we have 2 new ones this year. So it's
Who's
nice.
the new ones?
Oh, I knew that. I almost prepared it, but I thought, no, it's not going to come.
I've been grooming a few as well. St. Lucia should be sending in an application to become another user group as well. So
this year, new ones are 2021. We have Austria.
Oh no!
And Ghana.
Are they only joining now? They're
Yes. Yes, Austria, they're only joining now, and after a lot of contribution, and Ghana.
Okay. Awesome.
And then we already have in the pipeline, discussing. I've been discussing with Philippines, Algeria, Zambia, Nigeria, and Cyprus. So.
And you can add St. Lucia to that list. They will be coming soon to talk to you as well.
Good.
Fantastic. Okay, and maybe going around the table, Ale, what has been the most notable highlight for you of the year of QGIS?
Well, notable. I mean, it was nice this year to, we weren't able to meet in person, so that was really a shame, and I hope we can fix it as soon as possible. But I was surprised this year because I talked to different people that I know in contexts that are the farthest I can think of respect of GIS. And I learned that they were using a GIS software. So I asked them, what are you using? And 2 people told me, oh, I'm using QGIS. Oh, that's nice. So I mean, I'm mostly a developer. I'm not using QGIS for my work. I'm developing QGIS, but I'm not using it very much. So sometimes I ask myself, but how much is this useful? Because I invest a lot of time. Some of this time is paid. Some of this time is just volunteer. How much is this useful for other people? So I've got this nice feedback from random people that I knew from completely different contexts that they were using QGIS for the most kind of different activities. And that was a great but small but great satisfaction for me in knowing that QGIS is so used in so different environments and in situations. One was an ONG working for Africa. The other one was just something to collect funds from the European Union to distribute the funds to poor people. So different contexts, but very nice contexts for having kind of a better world, let's say that. So that was really, really nice. Another thing that I like to highlight is that already the 3rd year now that there's a public administration in Italy. Is a completely 100% public sector, and they are investing some money for bug fixing in QGIS. So they decided to allocate some funds, and not for developing the new features as we were discussing before, but just for bug fixing. Of course, they choose the bugs. So they are the bugs that they are bugging them. But anyway, I think it's a good example on how a public administration, but even a private administration, that someone that uses this software for their work, they can contribute it back to the project, and at the same time have a benefit because they are using the software, and if the software is buggy, it's also their problem. Yeah, well, that's it.
So Charles says thanks for cancelling all those skiing holidays and fixing bugs instead as well. Yeah. Thank you, Ale. What about you, Andreas?
Well, for me, it's quite nice to see QGIS used more and more in Switzerland. The user group is growing. We have 120 members now, and also the you see more and more job descriptions mentioning QGIS skills are required. So it's quite nice, I think. And I think more than 1/3 of the provinces in Switzerland is using QGIS actively. So it's quite some progress there. Other than that, I didn't have like a real highlight regarding the features, but for me, it's always a bit of Christmas time when I look at the visual changelog to find out all the features I didn't know about. For me, that's one of the more exciting parts of our webpage, I think, the visual changelog. And that's also
shout out to Charles, I know he's watching on the stream, for really taking that and just running with it and making such a good job of keeping the changelog, really making it a top-notch thing. It's also for me like a Christmas present. Oh, you've got the executive director joining.
And funny parts. I mean, it's always interesting to see unexpected donors or sustaining members from parts of the world I didn't expect. I think we have sustaining members from 26 countries in the world, and also unexpected small companies like a hotel planning its golf course with QGIS, or a trucking company in the United States, or whatever. Not the typical QGIS users you would expect, but they give something back, and that's quite nice to see.
Yeah, wonderful. How about you, Gary? Do you read the changelogs every release?
Sometimes. There's a lot of work goes into that, but it's very, very handy.
Have there been any highlights for you in terms of what QGIS as a project has been, not necessarily just the software?
I actually looked at some C++ code the other day, so I guess that was my highlight. I haven't written any C++ in years. A lot of Python, but not C++.
You should go and do some git command. I'm sure will tell you where all your lines of code are and how many of them are left. I think people like Niall and Ali are slowly replacing all the old timers code with fresh, good code.
Hey, wait a minute. You said fresh, good code? I might be offended by that.
I'm speaking on my own part there.
Okay.
I'm sure you've got lots of good code still. I think you've still got main.cpp and QGIS app.cpp and all your plugin interface and all those basic things that you put in, still the same framework that is being used today. So
I think maybe it's time for QGIS. I want you guys to think about this, to do what Esri did and rewrite the entire code base, switching from Fortran to the .NET or whatever it was, because that was a great success. So why don't you guys think about that for the next year?
How about Java?
Yeah, I was just saying, seeing
the
the
logging
amount of
module,
mails,
great logging module.
Yeah.
seeing the amount of mails we got in the last 2 days, that's definitely what to go for.
But Gary, that was actually half the reason I became like an open source GIS enthusiast, because they stopped supporting Unix on the release of whatever ArcGIS 8, I think it no longer supported Solaris, and
all that stable Fortran code that was fast and efficient was converted into that Microsoft. Okay, I won't say anything bad about it, but that Microsoft framework, and I think a lot of it, I don't know this for sure, but my guess is a lot of it was written by people who didn't do GIS, didn't really understand geospatial, but they knew how to write within the framework. And so, yeah, that was a big point that bothered me as well, was getting rid of my favorite little arc view and eliminating support for Unix. That was a big turning point for a lot of people.
Raymond is jokingly saying you should have started QGIS in Python so you could be a core dev now as well. Was Python on the horizon when you were, or was it in your radar at all when you started with QGIS? Were there even Qt Python bindings yet?
The Python bindings didn't come in until 2007, version 0.9. When I started QGIS, I don't think I'd written a line of Python. I was writing a lot of Ruby code back then. But
what
I'm still a core developer, Raymond. I'm still a core developer. My name shows up in the about box at the top, so that's my claim to fame.
What I was trying to ask was, were there Qt Python bindings at that point, or was C++ the only way you could code with Qt?
At what point?
When you started QGIS, I mean, if there were Qt Python bindings, it could have been an option, but I don't even think there were Qt Python bindings in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I guess.
How about you, Jürgen? What was your highlight? Wait, let me try to guess and then tell me if I'm right. It was repackaging the Windows build about 7 million times.
No, it's
highlight.
It's 3.5 million times, Tim, because we dropped 32-bit support.
Oh yeah,
That was probably his highlight.
A highlight. I don't have a highlight, I think. I have a mess up, but that's all I remember.
Can you like briefly explain to the audience what happened in the Windows QGIS build world this year? Like what was the timeline of events?
Not really.
Is it too painful to look back on? Or?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can explain it, and then you tell me how wrong I am, which is you're usually good at that, and I'm usually good at getting things wrong. So you dropped the Win32 support, check, and then you introduced the MSI builds and a new OSGeo.
I just redid all. Was it this year, or was it last year? End of the last year, I think it was. So I just rebuilt all the packages or repackaged all the packages, because in OSGeo4W there was a lot of craft, a lot of really old packages, and I started from scratch there and packaged all things again. And because of that, I also dropped the 32-bit build because I didn't want to rebuild everything for 32 bits. So that's about it.
And you banged your head against the wall trying to get things to build on Microsoft Azure? Or?
No, not really. It was just a load of stuff that needed to be redone, but I don't think there was anything really tricky about it. Just a lot of work.
And then you had a lot of fun and games doing bug fix, release, rebuilds, and rebuilds.
Yeah, that's what I remember about this year.
Not a highlight.
No, not a highlight.
Well, all I can say is that on behalf of everybody out there who uses Windows, who's not myself, unfortunately, or fortunately, thank you so much, because I can't even begin to express how much everyone just takes for granted that when the release comes out, there's just this exe or MSI or whatever they can download and use, and they don't really have an inkling of understanding of how much sweat and tears, I don't know how much tears, but I'm assuming some tears as well, went into actually making those builds. And it's really the bedrock of the whole QGIS project, is having the releases go out with binary builds. So hooray from me, even for a low light for you, it was a highlight for me that there was somebody like you going and fixing all these problems and figuring them out.
And I can imagine that you don't get a lot of thank you, but you very quickly get complaints if things break.
Yeah, the approach grids are now there, and why are they there? Can we get a little smaller installer and all that? Yeah.
What is the ultimate outcome with the grids? Are we packaging some and some you get online?
No, there's no way to do that. Or, well, there is a way to do that, but we would have to do it ourselves. Approach upstream doesn't have any separation of grids anymore. So they have either all or none. And there is a way to download them on demand, but we don't use that in QGIS. And it would be also a problem for enterprise users also, or these kind of people that are not allowed to download stuff or install stuff. And so having them all is the easiest way to get people to have the grids that they need. Because
that's why the MSI builds are now 1 gigs.
That's more. I think the grids alone are 500 megabytes.
It's basically half of QGIS package size.
But you cannot really say who needs what. It's not. Well, it's not tied to a location or something. Somebody uses only his local things and may use other things, and so you cannot really tell which grids actually are required for anyone.
So the MSI builds, does that mean the NSYS installer is no longer used, or does it make an MSI build?
Well, both things are made from Osteo4W packages, but the NSI installer cannot cope with the size. So there's a 2 gigabyte limit, and that's why we switched to MSI, because it doesn't have that. But essentially, it's still the same thing. It's just a script that packages up the Osteo4W packages and makes an installer of it. And it's either an NSI or MSI installer, but essentially it's just repackaged Osteo4W packages.
So people in the stream are echoing my thanks to you for all your efforts, Jürgen. And what happened? What's the next big objective on the Windows build side, or are you done? Is there no problems left to solve?
I don't have any. Well, that depends on what we add and what dependencies are there, and that will tell us which other things we need. I don't have extra plans on. I just try to keep up with QGIS on the packaging side.
You don't wanna put QGIS on the Windows store so that people can just type QGIS and then it installs on their Windows machines?
I don't need that.
Yeah.
What about auto builds? Whenever there's a PR, that we get a package that the QA team can go and.
Well, I recently we talked about it on the PC, and I even there was one thing that was keeping me from doing that because we need a lot of space, and GitHub workflows were restricted in that way. So I never could get a build through with the, I think, 10 gigabytes or what they have there in that workspace. I was constantly running out of space. And I recently found out how I could move that to a different drive. And there I can now actually build things. And also the workflow I have there now ends up with an MSI package once you have done the build. But I didn't go through to plug it into the commit events or something that you can actually do that. But the base for that should be there. It just triggers that we need and stuff like that. But we also already had that in the CI, but it was disabled because it probably took too long to run. There was a Visual C++ build on our CI.
Well, just wanted to say that there is a possibility to test any PR, actually, because there is already a workflow that builds a version for Windows, including Python now, and but it's based off Ming W64, so it's not a Microsoft Visual C++ and so on. So it's
Yeah,
a kind of,
that's what I said. There was also an what was it called? Was it the Microsoft thing? Azure-based build of.
no, that's a different thing, because that's a cross build made on Linux Fedora, and so you build the package.
No. There was an Azure build for Azure for W, not for QGIS. I had that because people asked for it, or our fellow developers asked for it. But Visual C++ is really slow in building this stuff, and so it was disabled.
Okay.
I just want to check, are you drinking from a non-QGIS mug there, Gary? Oh, you're on mute.
There, yes, I am, because my wife brought me up another cup of coffee. So you don't complain when you're given a gift.
No, you don't. And plus you've got your hat on, which I don't even have a QGIS hat on.
I've got the other cup here. It's in standby mode, so one of the old ones.
Azure pipeline thing is still there, but it's disabled.
So there's some magic waiting for 2022. Maybe we'll get nightly, not nightly, but on-demand builds for Windows for PRs. Can't you make like a small package with just the QGIS artifacts in it, and then another package which is all the other stuff, and then you can have like the base test platform, and then you just get this small thing with the QGIS libraries and exe if you want to go and test a PR and try it on one machine.
It's already there. It's a Ming W64. It's not Microsoft Visual C++, but it's already there. If you want to test a PR on Windows, you can now, today, with a different workflow. It's not OSGeo4W. It's a different thing. It's the portable QGIS made from Alessandro Mani and the other guys.
That was the way the Windows used to be done originally, right, Gary? With I think Radim built was it him that did the Ming W builds originally?
I don't remember exactly.
And so,
Do you have more questions?
we have another question for Gary. What do you think of the QGIS Hub Styles Gallery?
I have to be honest, I have not even looked at that. But from what I've seen in posts about it and stuff, it looks great. But I just haven't taken a look at it. In fact, that's something that I keep thinking about doing, but I haven't yet.
You can go and get a nice little car in 3D from Klaus Carlson and put it in your 3D models. And then there's a comment from Matthias Kuhn saying on QField we've got Windows builds with MSVC on GitHub Actions, including QGIS libs. All QField users out there. And Charles is asking me what's my highlight of QGIS this year. But, I guess I've just been enjoying everything, all the cool features coming in all the time, and just going through the changelog and playing with stuff. And we had like a long training engagement in St. Lucia, and I think for me was one of the highlights just seeing. We had some people that never used GIS in their life, and by the end of it, they were like building models and running, just doing everything, writing expressions. And one guy's a fireman. He's not an IT guy. He was just really just the Hi Krishna, in case you see this, and he's just doing amazing things. And he wasn't the only one. And just seeing what people can do with QGIS and how enabling it is. That was always the fascinating thing for me of QGIS, was just like as an enabler of social change. And really, I think your work, Gary, has made it an enabler of social change more than all the other bits about the budget and all the other things we talked about. Just how many people's lives can get changed by having access to spatial technology. He's busy planning whether new fire stations should go based on optimal routing, network analysis, and things like this. It's really just the fabric of society can really get improved by your progeny. So.
Yeah, and it's really amazing to see how domain independent the whole thing is. You're like Alessandro was saying before, you cross people. I was at the ocean in summer once, and I crossed also two people. They were like, "Oh yeah, we're marine researchers, and we use this tool QGIS," and I didn't say anything because I wanted to hear what they were telling, and they were like, "Oh, it's so good," and then you meet other people. So it's really nice to see that it's used in so many different fields.
I went on a mountaineering trip to Monte Rosa cabin, and I met two QGIS guys there surveying the glacier. Yeah, it's really nice. They did some radar thingy with QGIS.
So you're seeing more and more, at least in Switzerland, we are seeing it more and more being used across the board. And I see it a lot also from the company side, how different like we used to have like the provinces as client, and then the maybe one type of offices, and now you're getting more like into natural things, and then people that go around measuring gas leaks. Well, that's QField, but still that's same ecosystem. Then you have people that are planning ambulance kind of thing. So it's there is a lot of or skiing or I don't know. We are really seeing a much more large user base than the classical GIS users that we used to have maybe 3-4 years ago, and that's really cool to see.
The next question was about telemetry, and are we going to be gathering any anonymous usage statistics? So there was a patch in when did it land? 4 weeks ago by
Mhm.
Ale, who's added some user agent tweaks to QGIS. And we are planning to start doing some anonymous aggregate reporting. So it will be like number of QGIS opens per day, per country, I guess, is a kind of thing, per operating system, per
Yeah,
QGIS
maybe
version, something like that. Probably
the important thing to mention is that the patch that Ale did was basically just adding the operating system to the user agent. So the origin of that was that we often are taking decisions on operative systems without knowing anything about our user base. We do assume that Windows is probably 95% of the user base, but we're just doing assumptions. So that's all that is behind that patch. That was, I mean, it was merged by Ale because he did it, but it was decided by the PSC to ask Ale to please do that, so that we can actually understand better the use of the who is using QGIS on what platform.
Yeah.
And just for those who are wondering how we collect the metrics, it's on the news reader. So when you connect to ask for a news article, then we can see that you're using QGIS and get some basic things. QGIS is not sending any private information off your computer or anything like that. It's just really, we just register that a client connected and asked for a news article.
There is a page that we created prior to that to their patch as well, that lists all the data that is transmitted to QGIS.org. It's on the website. I don't remember the link. I don't have the link handy here. Maybe if somebody can find it, we can share it in the chat. But Alessandro did a throughout analysis of the code, seeing where communication is established and what kind of information is going over. So, but you'll see if you have a look at that document that basically the information that is given is QGIS version and operating system. That's
Yeah. The bottom line is that QGIS is not spying on you in any way. We are very strict actually in respecting privacy. I think it's one of the most highest priorities. So. But I remember there have been some discussions in the past about telemetry, and I don't think we want to do that because there's not an agreement. And I think it could be useful for. But then the next question is, who's going to analyze the data anyway? Because that's also, even if you collect a large amount of data, then you need to analyze them and to find something logical about the data. And so it's not just about collecting data. In any way, we do not really want to spy on users. And also, there are some limitations, as Jürgen said before, about usage of QGIS in large organizations that do not want in any way to have any data going outside. So, of course, you can have proxies and you can have firewalls that maybe can manipulate the ongoing data, but that would be a problem anyway. So it's much better just to not have any kind of telemetry. So what we are doing now is very, very limited. It's just sending the QGIS version information and now the operating system without versions probably. So it's just the operating system, not that much really.
And the QGIS version as well, so that we can see which versions are being used. Because if you think of it, like we really don't know, are people using the LTRs or the nightlies, or what? Like where should we spend effort and time?
Yeah.
That was all part also of a discussion regarding what we discussed before about the testing infrastructure, like the semi-automated testing, and how much investing work on those things should we do, and how many LTRs should we be releasing? Should we increase the time, the support time of an LTR from 1 year to 2 years? So all those kind of decisions, we are just taking them out of gut feeling, and that is why we decided to at least know how many people are using Windows, how many people are using Mac, and how many people are using Linux, basically, on top of which version are being used. So if you are very interested in that subject, if I remember correctly, there was a pull request opened on adding telemetry, or it was a QAP, I'm not sure anymore. But there was an interesting discussion around it. The outcome was, as Alessandro said, we are not going to implement it, but there was a discussion there, and it's maybe worth it if you're interested on the subject, going and seeing the different positions that people were bringing and what pro and contra were being seen there. So it's for sure a discussion we've had, and we decided together with the community that telemetry is not going to enter QGIS, not even as it was proposed there as an opt-in. And that's all we're doing. Yeah.
Thank you. Then there's a question from Alex Camilleri, who says, when was the graphical modeler implemented? Is it slightly intended for users who don't use Python? I reached some limits in the graphical modeler and began to learn to code as a result.
Well, that's great if you learn to code as a result. We didn't know that the graphical model was good for teaching coding as well, but I don't remember when it was implemented.
Lyon, 2000. When was Lyon? 2012 or something. It was the Hackfest where I forgot to wake up in the morning. Well, I stayed up too late and I didn't wake up in time for my flight. And luckily, Werner Machu came and said, "Where's Tim?" And he knocked on the door and found me sleeping in my room and said, "Your plane leaves in an hour." And I made it on the flight somehow with probably my socks hanging out of my bag as I ran through the airport. But in that Hackfest in Lyon, maybe you can look quickly on the list to see. I think it was 2000.
Lyon, was it?
Yeah. Okay. 2012 or something. Victor Olaya joined us for the first time at that Hackfest, and he had been working on the processing on the GVSig model. What was it called? It was called Sextant framework. And he said, "How would you be interested in having this framework in QGIS?" We said, yeah. And so he started to build the processing framework in Python. And then I think in the last few years, then Niall started rebuilding core parts of it in C++ to get better performance, and more recently with multi-threaded performance in some of the processing modules. And Ale, of course, added also the CUDA or CLI, what's it?
OpenCL.
OpenCL, thank you. Support. So that's kind of the history of it.
Yeah, it was in 2012, in April 12.
I'm so impressed that I remembered that date. Maybe it's because of that missing the airplane. It's become etched in my brain.
Yeah, to go to the question about Python. Obviously, the idea of the graphic modeler is to be an easy way to build your models. I don't want to say that it's impossible to get to the level of complexity that you can get if you're writing your own Python scripts, but at a certain point, personally, I prefer switching to Python script as well, because they become more clear to me than huge models. But if you're a non-coder, I've seen models that I was blown away from. It's like we work with a company that is doing hydraulic modeling, and they do like calculate what happens when certain amount of floods happen, and they're doing all that with the process modeler. So it's they have this huge thingy. You need a 40-inch screen to look at it completely in tiny fonts. So yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do with it. But I think that the step you took to go to Python it's a very clever step as well, because it opens you up a lot of doors.
Speaking of QGIS history, does anyone remember when the expression engine was introduced? Because expressions are really cool for me. I mean, they're so every version they get more powerful.
I think it was Nathan that started that back in like 2000 and no, I don't know the year, but maybe
Is QGIS 2.0 or even before?
I don't think before. I'll have to go back and look. I don't remember what the year was.
For me, that's one of the strengths is we have in QGIS. You can calculate things everywhere, have data defined overrides, and all the flexibility you get through this.
Maybe one last thing to mention about the modeler as well is that Ujjwal Gandhi, who's one of our power users in the community, has been assembling like a wish list for processing for the modeler. Yeah, processing and the modeler together, I guess. I don't know, Ujjwal, if he's in the room here, but in the live stream room, but there are some nice plans for the future to be able to do, for example, debugging. Like debugging modeling flows is quite hard because you have to basically generate some temporary output, run it, and then check their output, and then eventually throw that away and things like that, and being able to stop and start and treat it more like a programming environment. So hopefully in 2022 we'll see some of these nice ideas get funded and happen.
Just so yesterday, for the first time, I don't use Windows much, and I was using QGIS on a client's machine, and apparently QGIS sometimes has little bugs and it crashes. I didn't know that it happens, but in Windows you can click debug now when you have a crash, and it will open up studio code, and it will allow you to get in there with a debugger and everything. So I was pretty amazed of that.
If we can get it to fix the bug for us too, that will be first prize.
Is there a button that says fix now and it just fixes it and commits to change?
That's called Jürgen. That's a Jürgen button. You ask him a question and you get a commit number back.
We had a question from just a comment from Bob Moskowitz that there are a lot of USA's federal users out there, or there would be a lot more if we had USGS Geological Map Schema, GEMS support. Anybody interested in adding GEMS support to QGIS? Gary, you're the obvious choice since you're direct line of usership. Aren't you a geologist by profession as well?
Yes. Geologist, mining engineer, software hacker, author, and a whole bunch of other things that I don't want to mention.
Do you know? Are you familiar with the GEMS schema or
No.
What is that?
The USGS Geological Map Schema called GEMS.
I'm assuming it has to do with symbology, but no. And there's standardized colors for rock units, of course, and then symbology for geologic features. I don't know if that's what it's about or not, but
All right, I think we're probably running out of questions and probably also running out of, I don't know, I've been here all day, so I'm running out of ability to sit in my chair staring at my computer screen for much longer. Well, I think I have well-known infinite ability to sit in my chair and stare at my computer screen. Probably a good time to wrap up anyway, and thank you for all joining this panel. It'd be good to maybe wrap up with some last thoughts from you all, maybe some outlook for 2022 or some final comment. Maybe just go around the circle. Andreas?
Just keep continuing the good work, I think. I don't have any like
that was my line.
Mine too.
Mine too.
I will agree on that.
I think continuity. That's some of the great aspects we have in QGIS. It's not there is like several months of no activity, but it's constantly evolving, and that's nice. And I'd like to see that continued.
Thanks, Andreas, and thanks for joining us today. Alessandro, do you have any parting thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I think that we are doing good, and the amount of work is increasing in all aspects. I mean, and what we should probably try to do better is to try to increase the budget and to dedicate it to bug fixing and maintenance, because that's something that, I mean, there are a lot of small and maybe not so small bugs that we should really try to address. Maybe they do not affect the vast majority of users, but they might be critical for some of them, that they do not decide to not adopt QGIS because of these bugs. So we should try to dedicate more efforts to the bug fixing. That's my opinion. I mean, but I think we just continue doing what we've done. And I would really like to have in-person meetings again. So have hackfests like we've done in the past, because I think that meeting in person is so important for building up a community. I mean, it's also important to have online meeting and virtual meetings, but meeting in person is a must for me.
You'll be pleased to know Giovanni was volunteering my farm as a Hackfest venue. So we can always.
Do we get to ride the burros?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a shared sentiment from the chat. Everybody's waiting to be able to meet in person again. I think it's the highlight of the QGIS calendar is those in-person meetups. Thanks, Ale. Gary, any parting thoughts? Will you join us again this time next year at the end of the year to do a little year-end review meeting again?
Sure, as long as I'm not in my mansion in the Cayman Islands or something.
Anything you're looking forward to happening in 2022?
A bit of normality in the world would be nice, but other than that, I don't know.
Good. Thanks so much for joining us, Gary. It's really a pleasure to have you. And what is your nickname? The mythical man, but hopefully you're a little bit less mysterious.
Do you remember where that came from? That came from a talk you gave at a conference where you said that QGIS was started by this guy in Alaska in his basement. He's a mythical man of QGIS. Nobody's ever met him. And then you said, has anyone here met him? And one person, I guess, raised their hand. I don't know who it was, but it had to be
Barry
somebody.
Yeah.
Barry, okay, yeah. He was in Victoria in 2007 at the OSGeo conference. So I've met a few of those folks, including Horst Duster and Barry and some of the others. So I'm not entirely mythical.
And you're known to occasionally, what's the equivalent of QGIS Hackfest bombing or photo bombing, but for QGIS meetups. You were known to pop up in the QGIS Hackfest or user meeting and surprise everybody. Gary was.
I actually had big plans to go to the meeting in Calgary. What was that, 2020? And that was back when I was at the helm of Locate Press, which I've since turned over. And we were going to have a presence there and get some authors there. And I was going to be at the conference. And then, of course, that all went south. But
one day it will happen. Thanks so much again, Gary. Huge thanks from me just for everything you've done. And every day I'm thankful for what you put out there. So. Marco, any thoughts from you? What's the chair going to be doing in 2022?
So the chair just got information that the expression engine was introduced in 2005, most likely.
Wow.
That's what Matthias told me in the back channel we have here. And he wrote 2005 or maybe even earlier. And funny enough, the link that he gave me to has a commit by Tim Sutton on it as last commit. So thanks,
That's
Tim.
There's a sign of old age. I thought it was Nathan, but I don't think I did anything.
No,
other than...
the header says Martin Dobier.
Okay.
But the last commit on the file was yours. So.
And sorry, Martin, I know you're watching in the chat. So Martin is, yeah, he's done so much as well on QGIS. And he was there in the early days. I remember he was like 19 or something, and I was like, wow, this guy's makes me feel so stupid. But I mean, everybody on the project really does that on a regular basis. But he's amazing, yeah. Okay, that's a good bit of
to go back to and to 2022. To me, as I mentioned before, the most important thing is to try to communicate about QGIS in a way that is worthy of the amazing tool and community that we have. It's really something that I'd like to do more and to try to invest more time in. And beside that, taking care of the community that we have, it's really easy, but that because it's so nice, everybody's nice to each other, and that's a pretty easy position to be in as a chair. So I don't think we have a difficult community to keep happy. So it's pretty amazing to see, and yeah, it's a pleasure to me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to be chair of such a community.
Oh,
and thanks to everybody for being there.
We're all thankful for you leading the project with a nice, gentle touch, and yeah, it's good to have somebody who's, and I know from experience, and I guess Gary also from being PSC member like you, or chair, that you often unappreciated and overlooked for the things you do. And there's a lot of background work that happens that people don't realize, even if it's just answering emails, endless emails from Springer, and can we use the QGIS map in our publication?
And from Plus One.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Jürgen?
I like this kind of questions.
I know. Chit chat and future looking questions is your sweet spot. We'll just have a long awkward silence while Jürgen thinks of something exciting. Jürgen, I won't put you on the spot, but other than to say, again, also we really appreciate all that head scratching work you've been doing on the Windows side, and not only on Windows. I think people don't realize all the other magic that happens thanks to Jürgen, all the Debian builds and all the infrastructure management, and I don't know how much hacking you've been doing on your CAD support and Postgres provider this year. I don't know what happened so much on those fronts, but
not so much.
Fixing hard to solve bugs, Jürgen's your man. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. That's it. That's a wrap. We'll see you next year. Have a good New Year's. Don't eat too much turkey.
Well, thank you, Tim, for taking care of
organizing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.